Our good friend and longtime columnist from the New York Daily News is Gary Meyers, and he joins us here on Big Board Sports to shed more light on the Jets and on the signing by Ryan Fitzpatrick. Gary, Rodger, Wyland in Albany, good morning.
Rodger, how you doing this morning?
Gary, I'm good. I missed you coming to Albany for Giants training camp.
You know, I was thinking about that while I was waiting to come on, that, it became such a part of my summer routine for so many years that I have to admit, I liked it when I got up there, but it's such a shorter ride for me going to East Rutherford for Giants camp now that it's made life a little bit easier, especially with the Jets, at their year-round facility in Florham Park rather than being in Cortland. I get up to upstate New York a bunch in April because I teach a class at Syracuse for a month. But I do miss just all the people up in Albany and just a real feeling of a training camp, which you don't really have at the team facilities.
Well, Gary, it's fun to reminisce about the good old days. For 16 years, the Giants trained at the University at Albany. Some good times with all the columnists and the beat writers and all the New York media that came through here. Got to know Gary a little bit, and I've always respected the heck out of your work, Gary, and what you've been writing, and I've been reading your material for many, many years. Let's start with the A topic on our show, and that is finally an end to the Ryan Fitzpatrick saga. He's now signed $12 million for 1 year. Who's the winner here, Gary? Let's start there. Is the Jets win this? Does Ryan win this? Is it somewhere in between? Who's the winner here in all this?
Well, really, Jets fans, because now Geno Smith is not the starting quarterback. And I'm sure that, a lot of the Jet fans are pretty relieved about that because they saw him play for a couple of years. I think if Geno had to be the starter this year, he certainly would have been better than he was, those first couple of years. But, just as far as the negotiations are concerned, it never should have went on this long. I mean, we're still talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick. We're not talking about an elite quarterback. But I really do think the Jets were scared off after what happened in the final game of the year in Buffalo, when he threw interceptions on the Jets' final 3 possessions of the season, which cost him a playoff spot. And despite, him throwing 31 touchdowns, which set a team record, and them having 2,000-yard receivers, for the first time in their history, I just think they got nervous about, was that the real Fitz, that he reverted to the way he played for most of the, first 10 years of his career before coming to the Jets. So that made it drag on. As far as who won it, I wrote in early June that Fitz wanted a one-year deal for $12 million. That was his compromise. The Jets had no interest in it at the time. They wanted to lock him up for multiple years, to have him as a mentor and a backup potentially for Christian Hackenberg. So from that point of view, Fitz won it because he got the one-year deal at pretty good dollars. The Jets won it because he didn't get market value, which would have been around $16 million for a starting quarterback. So they saved about $4 million. But I know there's no price you can put on having your quarterback there for the entire off season. But I do think there's some value to it, and the fact that he was the constant topic of conversation for the entire off season, I think, was somewhat of a distraction. So I think the Jets should have come around a lot earlier and got this thing done, so he could have been here for the entire off season. So I think if you're really going to try to create, a winner, even if it's just by a slight margin, I'd probably give it to Fitz.
Yeah, a little bit to Fitz. They came up a little bit in terms of the money. Now the question is on the field. I mean, Gary, can he go out and produce like he did last year? I mean, there's a reason that the Jets don't feel like he's a long-term guy here for them as their future quarterback. We know what happened in Buffalo. They gave him a big deal second half of the season after he had a great first half, and he flopped. I don't think he's going to throw 31 touchdown passes, but do you think Ryan Fitzpatrick can pick up where he left off? Well, not where he left off because he threw 3 picks against the Buffalo Bills, but can
where he left off after the 15th, going into Buffalo,
right before Buffalo. Right? Can he put up anywhere close to the kind of numbers he did a year ago?
He probably can. As long as Marshall and Decker stay healthy. He's got, a tremendous set of receivers who love playing with him, who, they developed great chemistry last year. But, he probably can do it. Will he do it? We don't have any, history of his to indicate that he's capable of playing great 2 years in a row. In fact, he's had a hard time holding on to a starting job 2 years in a row. So, he's going to be 34 years old. And if the Jets were all in on Fitzpatrick, they would have given him, a Sam Bradford deal, 2 years, $35 million. They were offering 3 years, $24 million for the longest time, which is about half per year of what Bradford got. So that's a pretty strong indication that the Jets they wanted him back. He's the best quarterback for this team right now, but it's almost as if they're saying, he's our guy, but, he's still Ryan Fitzpatrick. We're not going to pay big dollars for him, and he's the best we have until, they hope that Hackenberg develops and can play next year. But they have a much more difficult schedule than they had last year. They opened playing in their first 6 weeks. They play 5 teams that made the playoffs, and the other team they play are the Bills, who beat them twice. So, Fitzpatrick gives them a better chance to come out of the first 6 weeks still in contention than Gino would have. But if you look at that schedule, Rodger, and I don't have it memorized, I just know it's got a lot of tough teams in there. It's possible they can come out of that first 6 weeks 1-5 without a lot going, terribly wrong. It's only because the quality of the competition is so good. I mean, Kansas City's in there on the road, and Pittsburgh. They got Seattle at home. They play at Buffalo on Thursday night. They open against Cincinnati. So it's not going to be easy for them.
Gary, this one-year deal, does it put any added pressure on a Christian Hackenberg, on a Bryce Petty? Because now are fans expecting their clock to be accelerated so that they can go in next year and start one of those two?
Well, I think he can. I can't tell you to totally write off Petty, but he's clearly number 4 in the pecking order now. Now, maybe, the Jets keep 4 quarterbacks. I mean, that's a possibility. They can probably get Petty onto the practice squad, which would mean waiving them. I'm not sure anybody would pick him up, but their future is Hackenberg, or at least they want their future to be Hackenberg. They took him in the second round when a lot of people had doubts about him because of how he played the last couple of years at Penn State. So I think bringing Fitz back actually is very beneficial to Hackenberg. I think that Fitz will be a mentor to him, where if he wasn't here, it would have been Gino, who still has a lot of learning to do himself, and then the Jets would have signed a veteran backup. I'm not sure if it would have been Nick Foles or somebody else, but I think having Fitz here and letting him be a role model for Hackenberg in terms of his work ethic on the field, his study habits off the field, I think that will really help Hackenberg and accelerate his development, that he actually will be able to play earlier than if Fitz wasn't here.
We're talking to Gary Meyers, veteran, longtime NFL columnist, New York Daily News. Also the author of a book here in the last year, Brady versus Manning. Give you a chance, Gary, to tell us a little bit about that for our listeners who want to go out and purchase that. I mean, obviously 2 huge names, Brady versus Manning. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and thanks for that. It came out last September, and I really just traced this, what is the greatest individual rivalry, excuse me, in NFL history. Got into their friendship and their place in history, and I really think it's a fun read. A lot of behind the scenes stuff that had not been written before. Fortunately, it made the Times bestseller list, which I was very, very appreciative of. And there'll be a paperback coming out in September sometime, in which I completely updated the book to reflect what happened last season just in terms of their numbers and how they did against each other. And then I did an epilogue, which just encompasses all the stuff that did happen last season. So in the first part of the book, the existing part of the book, I updated all their statistical things and things of that nature, but then I spent a whole extra chapter just really detailing what happened last season, right up through Peyton's retirement and Brady losing the appeal and being suspended for the first 4 games. So, if you want the hardcover now, it's available on Amazon. If you want to wait for the updated version, it's coming out in September.
Gary Meyers, New York Daily News columnist, NFL. One final question: speaking of Brady, what will be the Patriots' win-loss record, Gary, after the first 4 games without Tom Brady?
I think they have a real good chance to come out of this 3-1 or 2-2 at the worst. And they've gotten off to 2-2 starts in the past and gone on to win the Super Bowl. So I think they will survive without Brady. Jimmy Garoppolo's in his 3rd year now, and we haven't seen enough of him, obviously, to say definitively that he's going to, how he's going to do. He's played well in the preseason. He played well in the game in Kansas City a couple of years ago that the Patriots got blown out of, but he came in the 4th quarter and played well. He's really just had mop-up duty. Throughout his first 2 years, he hasn't really taken a meaningful snap. He has not taken a meaningful snap in a regular season game to this point. Having the Brady situation settled right now allows Belichick to prepare Garoppolo to start the season opener. Last year it was very much up in the air, and it turned out that Brady got the suspension overturned and played every game. Now he knows he won't have Brady for the first 4 games, so he will give more reps to Garoppolo. Now, they open at Arizona on a Sunday night. I think that's going to be a tough game to win, but then they have 3 straight home games against Miami, Houston, and Buffalo. Patriots always play well at home, and I think at the very least they'll win 2 out of those 3. So that's where I get them at 2-2, but possibly even 3-1.
Gary, always a pleasure. Great work. Appreciate you coming on. Ryan Fitzpatrick, and a topic on our show, and I'm sure many others this morning. Thanks for a few minutes, Gary. Keep up the good work.
You take care. I hope to see you soon, Rodger.
Thank you, Gary. Gary Meyers, longtime NFL columnist at New York Daily News, and the Jets